Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to Season 1 of the Enigma Truck Racing Series. Tonight, kicking off round number 4 of the season here at not quite the longest track on this calendar, but one of the longest ones that we've been to so far, just short of our opening race at Daytona. Tonight, we are here at the 2 mile or 3.2 kilometer Michigan International Speedway for round number 4 of the season. I said already drivers making their way on down to the starting grid, so how about we take a look on down there and see just what things we'll be looking at to kick off round number 4. Starting out on the pole of tonight's event, that FVP number 5. He is the current points leader here in the Enigma Truck Racing Series. Won last week's race back at Texas, and the week before that back at the Indianapolis Raceway Park. Mr. Ross Phillips going to be rolling off on the pole here tonight. Starting back in P number 2, Kenny Tripp in the number 12 for Fast Track Motorsports going to be leading the outside row here tonight. Third place going to be going on back to Mr. Corey Blevins in that number 24 machine, with Kevin Church in the 29 to his outside. Fifth place going to go back to the Lucas Oil Toyota. That's the 88 of Scott Benedicts to his outside. Starting off P number 6 going to be the 85 of Brandon Kiger. Seventh place going to go back to that 89 of Justin Phipps, with the driver out of North Branford, Connecticut, starting back in P number 8. That's the 66 of Mr. Johnny B. Ninth place going to go back to the 37 of Art Hendren, with the rookie driver out of Kannapolis, North Carolina, Mr. Dwayne McMahon, rounding out this 10-car field here this evening. 100 laps will be the distance around this 2-mile speedway. Of course, doing a little bit of easy math there, 200 miles is the distance for these 10 truck drivers. Everyone that signed up for the race is here to compete. Nobody has done a little bit of a start and park, so should be a pretty exciting race to get us into the first about quarter of the season here tonight. That said, Ireson.com pace car is going to be ducking it on down to the safety of pit lane. And as we get ready to head into the Geico restart zone, we are rolling 100 laps here at the Michigan International Speedway. Both lines off to a pretty decent start. The inside looking a little bit better here, as it looks like Kevin Church getting a little bit loose off the corner there. But everyone's rolling. And frankly, on the initial restart, sometimes that is all that matters. This is a very long race for these truck drivers. Again, not quite the longest we've had so far this season, as we did open up Daytona for 100 laps. So that was an extra 50 miles of racing that these truck drivers had to endure. But Daytona, also the race where we saw a pretty decent handful of cautions. So we'll just have to see how patient these truck drivers are going to be in the early goings of this race. Right now, looking like the high line is the place to be, but already trouble. That's Kevin Church and Scott Benedicts around to bring out the first caution on lap number 2 of tonight's event. Call it a little bit of the commentator's curse. Just last week, 150 laps at the Texas Motor Speedway was completed without caution. With an even larger field than this one, we head on over to the Michigan International Raceway, and we have a yellow on lap number 2. If that's not the commentator's curse, I don't exactly know what is, but it does look like Kevin Church does have that number 29 Chevrolet rolling in the right direction. So how about we take a quick look back and get a better look at what brought out this first caution here this evening. Looking down there at that blue and white number 29, little bit wobbly through the corner, gets a bit of a tap from the 85 just behind. That gets him loose. That sends him down into the, I believe that was either the 66 or the 88. Not entirely sure on that one. Let's take another one look back at that and get a better look. It was not the 66. That was the 88 of Scott Benedict's that he got into there. The 88 Lucas Oil Toyota. Just a tiny, tiny little tap from behind from that looked like Brandon Kiger. And that was just all it took to get him a little bit loose, get him not quite spun around, but it did definitely make him lose control of his truck here this evening. So that's going to be the first caution. Taking one last look here at it, just a little bit of a nudge is all it took to send him around. Let's get a real quick onboard view of the driver of that number 29 machine here as we head down through turns 1 and 2. A little bit loose, then you hear that little bit of a nudge, and that's all it took to send him spinning, but he stopped it before he got to the wall. We do have to give him that, so he should be able to continue here tonight. He is currently down on pit lane, and it looks like should be a routine pit stop for him, as everyone except the top 4 came down pit lane. So looking back up at the top of the field, Phillips, Blevins, Tripp, and Kiger all stayed out. The entire rest of the field opting to head on down under this first yellow. Mr. Johnny B, Scott Benedicts, Justin Phipps, Art Hendren, Dwayne McMahon, and Kevin Church all electing to come down to pit road. Not going to be a one-stop race. Definitely going to be at least 2 stops for these truck drivers. And considering, again, we had 150 laps at the Texas Motor Speedway last week without any cautions. So all these truck drivers probably thinking to themselves, sure, yeah, it is really early to be pitting, but there's entirely the possibility that there won't be another caution tonight. So you gotta capitalize on those yellow flags when you get them, because so far this season has been some incredibly clean racing, and incredibly clean racing means you can't depend on that yellow flag coming out to work in your favor. Ross Phillips and Corey Blevins still making up the front row, though. Kenny Tripp falling back a position, so he is going to be starting back in P number 3. That's going to be Kiger and Johnny B making up the remainder of the top 5 as we continue to work our way around this speedway under caution. It does look like the lights just went out on the iRacing.com pace car, and we are forming them up 2 by 2, so it does look like we will be going racing next time by. Drivers going to only be 4 laps completed. Actually, 5 laps completed when they go green. They are currently in progress of doing their 5th lap. So still a long race ahead of these truck drivers. Only 5 laps in, and we already have our first caution flag. Nobody taken out of this race. Everyone is still out on the speedway. All 10 trucks are ready to go here tonight. Maybe a little bit of damage to Church and Benedict's, but both of them did their routine pit stops, and they are back out on the speedway. That said, iRacing.com pace car is off. We are going green flag racing yet again here at the Michigan International Speedway. And what a start for Ross Phillips. No contest to the outside whatsoever. Blevins now stuck side by side with Kenny Tripp, and he has fallen back even further in that number 24 machine. So it's looking like maybe the outside line not where you want to be on that initial restart, but ultimately at what is just shy of a super speedway in length. Ultimately, what line you restart in isn't going to be the biggest factor until you get late in the race, because it's going to be a lot like we saw at Daytona, where we're going to just be breaking off into packs of drafting trucks. That said, Tripp now working the high line, trying to get around our race leader Ross Phillips, though not quite gonna work. Not the run that he needed to get around our race leader. And now Brandon Kiger's in that outside line as well. He's looking to see if he can't make some momentum working up there. Now this Michigan International Speedway, only 18 degrees of banking, which is really modest for some of the NASCAR ovals that get visited, both in the real world and here in the Enigma Truck Racing Series. But it's just such a large track that banking more excessive than this, not really necessary. This track, really similar in layout to that of the Auto Club Speedway. Though, of course, we had our final race at Auto Club in the real world last week, and now they're shutting it down and reconfiguring it into a short track. A little bit of irony there, but at least Michigan International Speedway lives on. It's a track that can provide a sort of similar experience to what Auto Club has been doing for the last 20 years. Side by side for the race lead though, and for a moment there, Corey Blevins was being scored as our race leader. That said, he fell back a little bit just before the line, so he's not going to be scored as the leader for that lap. But now, side by side with Ross Phillips, and there are trucks everywhere behind them just trying to figure out where the most momentum is to be working with here. Bendix, the driver involved in that first caution, he's up in P number 4. He was looking all the way up to the wall for a moment there. Of course, here at a track like this, if you don't have anyone helping you, you're not going to get anywhere fast. You have to work in teams here, just because of how the forces of aerodynamics are. If you are not working with another truck, and a little bit of trouble, bit of a bobble there for Johnny B and Brandon Kiger. Everyone's still rolling, but that almost looked like maybe a little bit of iRacing netcode was involved there. Brandon Kiger bumped all the way back down to the 7th position just like that. Johnny B, he has gained some positions. Starting to break away maybe just a little bit, these top 5 trucks. A very slight gap, but you can see that they're starting to form into 2 distinct packs on the speedway here. Justin Phipps getting himself involved in that lead lap pack, and then Kiger, Church, Hendren, and McMahon a little bit forming their own bit of a second group back there in the back. 11 laps in the books now. Still a long way left to go, and being in that rearward pack, maybe not such a bad thing, because if a big wreck happens up in the front pack, having a little bit of breathing room to work with, not such a bad thing. We're currently looking back here. The battle for 7th is what this group of 4 back here is. Hendren leading the way for our second lap. Then it's going to be Kiger, Church, and McMahon. Everyone, for the most part, playing it safe early on in tonight's event. Side by side between Church and Kiger there, coming across the line. Church down on the low line. Kiger was thinking about staying up high. He's decided against that. He's just going to stay behind Church, try and get some use out of that 29 machine slipstream, and see if they can't start closing the distance to get back up into that lead pack. This is really similar to what we saw back at Daytona, where the field kind of got split into 2 separate groups throughout the race. Of course, only 10 trucks here this evening. Everyone in the field within 2 seconds of the race leader here tonight. And of course, the lead still as heated as it has been all race. The top 5, now even really top 7 trucks all under a little bit of a blanket here. Single file for the most part around the speedway here tonight. Justin Phipps going to be peeking on down to the inside of Johnny B here. He's going way down low in that Mountain Dew 89 machine. but very wide speedway here tonight. One of the more properly oval-shaped ovals. Technically still a D-shaped oval like something like Daytona is, but it's a lot more subtle than a proper one. A lot more gradual curving down the front stretch, but it's definitely not perfectly straight coming across the start-finish line. I'll tell you what, race fans, these truck drivers really need to savor every inch of space that they have here tonight at Michigan, because next week they need to forget everything that they have learned in these past 4 weeks. Next week, heading on over to the Martinsville Speedway, the paperclip. Only half a mile in length and extraordinarily narrow. We are going to see trucks nose to tail, door to door for 150 laps for some right and proper short track racing, even shorter than what we had back at the Indianapolis Raceway Park back for round number 2. Currently looking here at the battle for the lead between Ross Phillips and Kenny Tripp. These two trucks have been the two trucks contending for the lead pretty much all race, but just behind them, side by side, Scott Benedict's Johnny V. Benedict's really making that 88 machine work for him despite being involved in that first caution. It doesn't look like it has really done anything to affect the handling of his truck is all. And just behind them, look at that, Art Hendren in that 37 machine. Hendren is making some moves here tonight. Hendren's been having some unfortunate finishes in the past couple of races. Last week finished back in the 12th position. The week before that, also a 12th. Then back at Daytona, finished in 4th. So Hendren here, seeming like a driver that knows how to make these super speedways work for him. Currently running back in the 6th position, but he is looking to break his way into the top 5 here, and from there he can start contesting to try and beat his best ever finish with the league here back at Daytona. Of course, still a long way to go. We're only 18 laps into tonight's event. It's a little bit too early to be calling things like that. But you never quite know how it works, but sure enough, little bit of a bump against the outside wall there for the 37. That's going to send him all the way back to 8th, just like that. Here I am once again, jinxing the drivers out here on the speedway. And that's going to put a bit of a damper on Hendren's event here tonight, but he's still got it rolling. Looking like fairly minor damage on that 37 machine. Now he just has to wait for the pit cycle to start, and if he does have any damage, he can start looking into getting that fixed. Over the front though, side by side for the race lead yet again, Phillips and Tripp. Phillips pushing Tripp up high just a bit coming out of turn number 4, side by side across the line. Phillips really trying to use the middle of the track here and make things a little bit uncomfortable for Tripp. Darn near touching there entirely through turns 1 and 2. And Blevins is right there too. Blevins is thinking about what he needs to do to potentially get a lap led to his name in that number 24 Acid Designs Chevy. All three of these drivers fighting for the podium within a 1/10 of a second of each other on a track that is 2 miles in length. What a battle that is going on here for our race lead. Of course, everything could change for these three drivers in these next 80 laps. But even if we are early on in the race, a lap led to your name is a lap led to your name, and that gives you, if nothing else, a little bit of bragging rights. But Corey Blevins, he's going to get the run. He's going to dive it way down low, and Blevins is your new race leader just like that. But as soon as he gets it, going to fall back a little bit. 3 wide for the race lead, and they make contact. Caution flag is out. Kenny Tripp conveniently goes spinning right on down to pit lane. But for Ross Phillips, and it looks like someone else might have been involved there as well. That might just be the end of the race for our race leaders here tonight. It's like I said, a lot can change in the next 80 laps. And we just saw two drivers that have been contending for the lead of this race for the past 22 laps are now potentially having to pack it up and head home here tonight. Let's take a look back here and try and unpack what just happened to our race leaders battling 3 wide for the lead of this race. Currently looking at that number 5 of Ross Phillips. Looks like he might have drifted up just a bit, collected Kenny Tripp. He goes spinning. Everyone else swerving to avoid. And it looks like everyone was able to clear it. It looks like it was just Phillips and Tripp involved here. Let's see if we can't get another look at that from a different angle. I think that the rest of the field was able to avoid this incident here. Some drivers go high, others going low, others going straight through the middle. Like Kevin Church there, but yeah, sure enough, it was only our 2 race leaders involved in this caution. But what an unfortunate caution that is going to be. I really do think that that might be a race-ending impact on these 2 drivers. Take one more look down at that, maybe even break out the slow-mo cam here. Really just try and see what all went wrong. Sure enough, Phillips drifts up high a little bit, gets in the Kenny Tripp, both of them hard into the outside wall. And from there, not a whole lot that either of these trucks are going to be able to do, especially Tripp there. Had the initial contact with the wall and then going to get flung into even harder, dare I say, a little bit like a Beyblade here tonight, race fans. What a race. What a incident. And dare I say, that might just have championship implications here tonight. But now, Corey Blevins is your new race leader, and Mr. Johnny V is all the way up to P number 2. The driver of the Flaming Karma Paint Shop Chevrolet started all the way back in 8th, and now he will be leading the outside line to our next green flag here this evening. Unsurprisingly, our 2 previous race leaders, Ross Phillips, Kenny Tripp, both down on pit lane here tonight. Both of them have been down there for a little bit over 2 minutes now. Because we're under caution, currently they're only 2 laps down from that incident, but I don't think that either of them are going to be getting that damage repaired anytime soon. Let's see if we can't get a better look. Yeah, especially Tripp. Smoke coming out of that engine, that is not a good sign to see. Phillips looks like he has marginally less damage out there, but that is definitely going to be the end of the race for Kenny Tripp, I think. So, 23 laps in the books. 8 trucks left on the speedway here tonight. And Corey Blevins, Johnny B, and looking at the standings, Blevins comes into tonight's event in 14th in the championship standings, and Mr. Johnny B comes in 9th. So 2 drivers that are a little bit unexpected to be up here leading this race, now finding themselves with a unique opportunity. Let's see how they manage to make it work for them. iRacing.com pace cars heading off the speedway. Scott Benedict's Kevin Church making up row number 2. Let's give this thing one more shot. Green flag up in the air, and again the outside line just has a lot of trouble getting rolling here. Johnny B, not the launch he needed to get that 66 machine rolling. He's already 0.3 of a second back from our race leader, but of course the draft is always going to be a factor here, so he is making that ground back pretty easily. Corey Blevins, Johnny B, Scott Benedicts, your top 3 drivers here as we head on to lap 25, side by side for the lead. They make contact. Both drivers keeping their trucks pointed in the right directions, but we almost just saw a repeat of what happened to Phillips and Tripp here. And of course, Scott Benedict's involved in the first caution of tonight's event, and he's up here battling for the lead as well. Side by side for P number 2, Johnny B has to figure out what line he wants to be in here tonight. A little bit early to be trying to block runs, but you gotta go where the momentum is, and it's looking right now like the outside line is where you want to be. Will Benedict's file in there? No, he will not. That's going to allow Kevin Church to start and contest for the podium as well. And Brandon Kiger's right there as well. These 5 trucks all under a blanket. It is still absolutely anybody's game here this evening. As we zoom in out a little bit, Kiger and Church have fallen back just a tiny bit. But as we single file out, they're going to make that ground up fairly easily. Nose to tail for your top 5, and then it's a full second back to Justin Phipps, Art Hendren, Dwighton back, and once again, seeing the field kind of split into 2 distinct packs here. And look at that down at the bottom of the time scoring. Ross Phillips is already back out on the speedway, so it looks like Phillips' damage was not all that bad. But Tripp is still stuck down there on pit lane, and with the smoke we saw pouring out of that truck, I don't think we're going to see him back out here on the speedway anytime soon. Blevins once again back in the lead from Johnny B. In trouble. That was Kevin Church getting into the outside wall there. That was a pretty decent bang to the right rear of that 29. That's not going to do him any favors in the long run here tonight. Two by two throughout this field. And the battle for the podium is only going to heat up with every lap that we tick by. Still a long way left to go. And it looks like Johnny B has deployed the parachute a little bit. He wants to get out of this battle for the lead. He's going to let all these trucks go on by. He's going to let them do their thing. And after all, he saw what happened to Phillips and Tripp. He does not want to recreate that. So, might as well hang back. Let these 4 trucks duke it out for the race lead. And you never know if they might end up taking themselves out, and we find Mr. Johnny B up in the front row of this race yet again. A little bit further back in the field, looking back at that second pack, Justin Phipps leading the way for these 3 trucks. Phipps, McMahon, and Hendren making up 6th, 7th, and 8th respectively. These 3 not exactly where they want to be here. They have lost now 2 seconds on the lead pack of tonight's race, and they're going to have to work together if they want to make that ground up. We have seen at Daytona that it absolutely is possible to make up a 3-second deficit if you all work together. But that is a very serious what if here. There is no team affiliations between these 3 drivers, so going to be a big what if on if we see them all cooperate to try and catch back up to the lead lap, or if they're all just going to do their own thing and maybe try and work their pit strategies to get themselves back up into the top 5 of the night's event. Wayne McMahon, though, that number 87 truck rocking a new paint scheme here this evening, driving for Forensic Hard Grading. One of the few Toyota entries out here in the field here tonight. And it looks like Ross Phillips has just taken the tow back down the pit lane, so Phillips might have not been happy with how his truck performing and just send it on back down to pit lane. Neither of these trucks have retired from tonight's event, so both of them are still down there in their vehicles waiting for repairs to be done. So it's not impossible that we see either of them come back out here on the speedway here tonight. Their chances of winning have entirely been dashed here tonight, but we could still see them bring their trucks back out on the speedway and turn a couple of more laps here tonight. Looking back up at the front of the field, as usual, things are dramatic. Does look like Blevins and Benedict have built up a little bit of a lead. These two trucks, nose to tail, just working the tandem draft in a little bit, and they built up a 1 second lead over the next group of two, Kiger and Kevin Church, for third and fourth position. But as we cross the line, 33 laps in the books here tonight, 66 left to go. Third of the way into this race, and now as that second caution came out, it does look like everyone has made at least one pit stop. A lot of trucks have actually made two. Benedict's, as well as Church, Johnny B, Phipps, basically everyone except Blevins and Kiger now have two pit stops to their name here. And as we take a look down on our pit strategy box here tonight, you can see, for the most part, everyone had the same idea. Everyone came down to pit lane on that second caution. It's just a question of who came down under the first one. And Kiger and Phillips both have not. Blevins as well. So we will have to see what those three trucks decide to do in the remainder of this race, because they are going to be a couple of laps shorter than the rest of the field here tonight. But at the same time, that also means that they are going to be on slightly older tires than everyone else, which, while not great, that means they have an extra set down on pit lane that they can still use. And sometimes tire management can be all that it comes down to, especially in these long green flag filled races. Taking a little bit further look back at that second pack back in the field, Art Hendren looking to try and make the move on Justin Phipps. He's going to try and get around that Mountain Dew number 89 down here on the backstretch. Will he have the momentum to do it, though, is always the big question. And it's looking like not quite. Going to pull it down low, heading down 3 and 4 here. He's going to try it again, heading down the front stretch. He goes down below the white line, which is allowed here at Michigan. You are allowed to go below that white line, and he is going to make the pass on Justin Phipps. So that's going to bump Hendren back up to 7th, 2 spots above where he qualified. So even though he did fall back a couple of positions from that restart, he is still gaining ground here tonight in that number 37 machine. But now looking around the speedway, it does look like things starting to spread out just a bit. The closest battle on the speedway is still the battle for the lead here tonight between Blevins and Scott Benedicts. Blevins up 2 spots, Benedicts up 3. Basically, every single driver in the field tonight, with the exception of Justin Phipps, Ross Phillip, and Kenny Tripp, have gained positions here this evening. So a lot of happy truck drivers here tonight, and you can see up there in the top of your screen just how spread out things are right now. For the most part, everyone has lost the draft here tonight, with the exception of a couple of trucks. Johnny B, Brandon Kiger still in their own little battle here. But then it's just Blevins and Benedicts that are battling for the lead of tonight's event. The question is, when will we start seeing these trucks make their way down pit lane? Because if my estimate is correct, I do think that everyone still has to make another stop at some point in this race. If we did end up having multiple cautions, we could see that maybe not being the case. We could see drivers stretch their fuel enough to make it to the end. But again, very big what if here, and I would absolutely not be banking on it if I was one of these drivers. That said, how about we take a look on board here with one of these trucks, get a little bit of the onboard experience, see what these drivers are up to out here on tonight's speedway. Gonna ride on board with our second place driver, the number 88 Lucas Oil Chevrolet of Scott Benedict's. And sure enough, looks like one of our drivers has officially retired from tonight's event. Ross Phillips has packed up that number 5 machine. He is going to take it on home here for the evening and start getting ready for next week's race at the Martinsville Speedway. Kenny Tripp still down on pit lane getting repairs here tonight. Gonna be honest, I can't say that his truck looks a whole lot better than it did about 20 minutes ago. Looking back on the speedway though, currently closest battle on the track here tonight is going to be the battle for 4th place between Mr. Johnny V and Brandon Kiger. Johnny V running to get what I believe would be his best finish here in the league. Let's take a quick look down at our previous race notes. Johnny B, 11th place back at Texas, 9th place back at the Lucas Oil Indianapolis Raceway, and 12th back at Daytona. So Johnny B, by far, having one of his best runs so far this season. And that's not to say that he is a bad driver with those finishes by any means. He's just been involved in some really unfortunate incidents pretty much race after race. But tonight, the speedway is clear in front of him. Bit of pressure from behind with that number 85 of Brandon Kiger, but things are looking really good for the driver out of North Branford, Connecticut here tonight. And look who it is back there in P number 6. Dwayne McMahon is catching on up to the rest of this field. McMahon back there in one of the only Toyota entries here tonight, the forensic hard grading number 87 here this evening. Was running all the way back in 10th. He was the last truck on the starting grid here tonight, currently now up in 6th place, looking to break his way into the top 5 again. I've said this week after week, McMahon is a driver that we really need to keep an eye on his career. Because he said that his race at Daytona, back for round number 1 of the Enigma Truck Racing Series, was his first ever time behind the wheel of a NASCAR truck. And he has been having some pretty decent finishes out here with the league, and it's always great to keep an eye on the rookie, an eye on the underdog, and see just what they're able to pull off in a field full of pretty dang experienced truck drivers. Currently, this battle for 4th place between Johnny B, Brandon Kiger, and Dwayne McMahon, the closest battle on the speedway here this evening. About, call it 0.2 of a second or so between each of these trucks. I say that Kiger catching up to Johnny B pretty quickly, and now looking to try and make the high line work. Not quite going to do it. They're going to swap positions here. Johnny B going way up high, and now Kiger's going to try the low line. Kiger going to make the pass without all that much issue. Now everyone looking to file back in line. Nobody's wanting to lose this draft, especially with how spread out the field is. If you lose the draft now, it's going to be really difficult to get it back, because pit stops are only going to shake things up even further here tonight. And speaking of pit stops, Kevin Church just came down pit lane. Dwayne McMahon, he's making his stop as well. So these are going to be the first 2 drivers to make pit stops under the green flag here this evening. Everyone else fairly spread out here tonight. Will we see any more takers this time by? Let's get a look down at pit lane and see what the verdict is for these 2 trucks. Looking like at least 2 tires for McMahon. Nope, not McMahon's going to be taking 4, and it looks like Church is taking 4 as well. Nobody coming down this time by, so going to be bumping McMahon and Church a lap down. I say that, but Brandon Kiger's coming down now, and he has some heavy damage on the right side of that number 85 machine. I don't think that's recent damage. I think he picked that up earlier in the race, and we just never noticed with the camera angles. But that's going to be Brandon Kiger down on pit lane. And Art Hendren is down here as well in that number 37. Both drivers going to be taking tires. And now here comes Corey Blevins, our race leader, down on pit lane. Scott Benedict's not far behind here tonight. So now it's looking like, for the most part, everyone is ready to make their green flag pit stops here this evening. 52 laps in the books. We have crossed the halfway point here this evening. But still, plenty of racing left to go for these truck drivers. Now we got a battle on the speedway. Brandon Kiger, for a brief moment, was catching up to Dwayne McMahon, but he hasn't quite got the speed to keep up with him. McMahon, of course, already made his pit stop. Kiger has not yet. Never mind, yes, he has. Looks like he's just having trouble keeping the momentum going that he needs to keep up with McMahon. And sure enough, now McMahon is up here in the top 5 of tonight's event. Kevin Church now being scored up in position number 2 in that number 29 entry. And Scott Benedict's coming down pit lane here this evening. Looks like he is going to be the last truck in tonight's pit cycle. Will he be able to make it snappy? Because he really needs to if he wants any sort of chance of getting back out on the speedway and having someone to draft with. We will just have to see what his plan is. And I don't see them putting the jack under that truck. I don't see them putting the jack under that truck at all. a fuel-only stop for Scott Benedict's. Now that is an interesting strategy. We're going to have to keep an eye on that 88 and see how it plays off for him. Because they did not put the jack under that number 88 at all. Dwayne McMahon now finding himself up into P number 3, but he has Brandon Kiger right on his tail. A seasoned veteran both here in NASCAR and in the Wednesday night short track late model league. Kiger has a lot of experience to his name in all sorts of different disciplines, particularly the ones that make left turns. He's going to pull it down low and contest McMahon for position number 3 in tonight's race. 55 laps in the books, not quite the momentum he needs to make that pass stick. But he's right there riding along with the rookie driver, and he is not going to make things easy for that number 87 machine. Does look like he got at least a little bit of the damage fixed up on that number 85, though of course not going to really be fixing cosmetic damage in the middle of a race, but it does look like they got that bit of a bump that there was on the right front sorted out. So that'll at least a little bit help his aerodynamics here this evening, but still, never a good time to be getting damage on your trucks. A little bit further back in the field as well, Justin Phipps trying to catch up to Art Hendren. There was a couple laps where Phipps was the last driver out on the speedway. He has gained a leg up on Scott Benedict's, with Benedict's on that alternate pit strategy. So we will just have... I'm really curious to see how things play out for the driver of the number 88, because a no tire stop was probably the last thing that I had on my bingo card here. Of course, I don't really come into here with a whole lot on my bingo card in the first place, because you never know what you're gonna get in these races. No matter how professional the drivers, how good car control they have, especially here on the ovals, there's always going to be that little element of chaos that it will always be present, and you can never know just quite what to expect. Dwayne McMahon, Brandon Kiger, nose to tail. It looked like Kiger tried to make a pass up on the high line, and McMahon might have moved a little bit up to that high line as well. That put a damper on his plans. But still, these two trucks are nose to tail. Not quite bump drafting. I haven't seen any contact between the two of them. But either way, quite the battle going on for the final podium position here this evening. And Kiger's going to try and look down the lowest line. He's going to decide against it. He's really trying to get as good of a run as he can before he tries and goes for the move. But he might just be able to do it right here. McMahon up high, Kiger down low, side by side, coming out of turn number 4. And side by side as they cross the line, but McMahon still going to have the advantage in this battle. But just like that, Kiger's going to make the move down on the low line, and now he is the one that has to play on the defensive. McMahon's going down low. He's looking to make that spot right on back. Not wasting any time putting himself back up into the podium here this evening. The rookie driver, he is looking to set a name for himself here at the Michigan International Raceway. Third place would be his best finish here in the league. Of course, I don't know what sort of official iRacing series he has run since he started here in the Enigma Truck Racing Series. But as far as I'm aware, this would be McMahon's best ever finish in a NASCAR truck if he manages to make this work. 40 laps left to go. That is a long time for these drivers to have to battle it out. And McMahon's up in the outside wall a little bit. That's not going to do him any favors here this evening. Just behind him, that's the 66 of Johnny B. Now he's coming into the picture, and he's going to get around McMahon without much issue at all. That bump into the outside line, that completely ruined that 87 machine's momentum. He's still in the top 5 though. That you got to remember that he is at least still in the top 5. That alone is a very notable feat for these drivers. And he is still just barely maintaining the draft with Johnny B. He is losing ground through 3 and 4 here. And we might just have trouble. Never mind, not quite. I thought we might have had a spin. Looks like Hendren might have just hit the parachute there on that number 37. He was side by side with Justin Phipps for a decent little bit of time there, and just like that, he now has a nearly 1.5 second deficit to the Mountain Dew number 89. So I'm not entirely sure what happened between Phipps and Henry there. Looks like our truck actually does have footage of that, so let's take a look back. Let's see what caused Hendren to fall back so dramatically after being side by side like that. Side by side, through and through, Hendren drifts up the track a little bit, maybe a little bit loose. But I can't see anything that would have caused him to lose nearly a full second just in an instant like that. Definitely a little bit bizarre. Now Hendren is 2 seconds back from Phipps, so his job of catching back up to that 89 machine has only gotten just that much harder. Trucks now fairly evenly spread out around the field. Corey Blevins, that number 24 machine, very comfortably leading this race here tonight. A full nearly 8 seconds between himself and Kevin Church back in position number 2. 66 laps in the books, 33 left to go. He just has to get himself through this final third of the race. But of course, there's always that little element of chaos. You never know what could happen to any of these 8 trucks remaining out on the speedway. I'll tell you what, a caution would really make that 24 a pretty unhappy camper here this evening. Looking back at some real world racing info though, this track opened up all the way back in 1968. So Michigan has been around for a little while. Never been properly reconfigured, but there has been many an update to the seating areas and the accommodations that the track has to offer. And of course, they also at one point had a nearly 3-mile road course also located on the property. It does not exist on the iRacing.com platform, but has hosted plenty of Trans Am races. And of course, the Oval has hosted NASCAR in all of its national divisions. And it's also hosted IndyCar at one point, though IndyCar has not raced here in a couple of years now. The lap time record set by Myatt Snyder back in 2018, a 38.66. So far, none of our drivers on the track here this evening have come close to scratching that best lap time set so far, set by our current race leader, a 39.64, so nearly a full second off of the real world track record here in a NASCAR truck. And of course, it's like I always say, the differences in the NASCAR trucks here on iRacing are purely cosmetic, and for the most part, it is the same in the real world. But it is interesting to note that the lap record was set by a Ford F-150, and there are no Fords present in tonight's event. Battles are heating up back in the mid-pack side by side for Brandon Kiger and Johnny B. Johnny B has found himself up in the podium of tonight's event again, side by side for that third position, and McMahon has gotten himself back into this as well. He has recovered from that little bit of an impact he had with the outside wall about, call it 7 or so laps ago. And now we have 3 trucks again under a blanket with each other when everyone else in the field is seconds apart. Kiger's now finding himself up in the top 3, but Johnny B, he's looking to get that spot back. He is not going to be waiting whatsoever. And now Johnny B, he's back up in the 3rd spot. He's down on the low line. Kiger running way up high in the Busch Beer number 85. But he's making that high line work even without any sort of momentum. Of course, McMahon, he's about 0.4 of a second back. Call that probably about 5 car lengths. That's not quite enough for him to push either of these trucks. So if McMahon closes the gap a little bit, he might start to help one or the other. Because when you get a pair of trucks in a line, between the draft and a little bit of a bump there, a little bit of a nudge, that might have scared Mr. Johnny B just a little bit. But when you get 2 trucks, or really any vehicles, nose to tail at a super speedway like this, both of them manage to push each other just a little bit faster than they would be running by themselves. Speaking of trucks out on the speedway though, looking down at the bottom of the timing and scoring board, he is currently being marked as 48 laps down, but Kenny Tripp is back out on the speedway. And for those of you who are curious, we do have an interval value for him. Kenny Tripp is 32 minutes and 23 seconds behind our race leader. Which really puts things into perspective when, we have this battle for 3rd right now, and it's about 0.2 of a second, sometimes even less than that, between these 3 trucks. So put that into comparison for a driver that is 32 minutes behind our race leader. McMahon is getting himself involved in this battle here. Looks like a bit of a top-down view. See if we can't get a better view of the different lines at play here at the Michigan International Speedway. A very wide racing surface along with minimal banking, and Kiger's up into the outside wall. That is terrible news for Kiger, because that's going to allow Johnny B to get by. That's going to allow McMahon to get by, and that is going to allow Phipps to get by as well. Phipps pushing it 3 wide. 3 wide for 4th place between these 3 trucks, and they're still 3 wide heading down the front stretch. Kiger's going to pull ahead just a bit, and McMahon falling back a little bit. I don't think anyone likes the 3 wide call from their spotter, even if it is at one of the widest tracks in competition here this season. 3 wide is a scary place to be. Now this battle has turned into a 4-vehicle affair, and it looks like Kevin Church has come down pit lane. Church is making a pit stop. Is it a regularly scheduled one? A little bit of damage to the left rear of that 29, which is interesting to see. I think this is a scheduled pit stop for the driver of the 29, but we'll have to keep an eye on him. As once again, things heating up for the final podium position. 4 trucks using pretty much every available inch of the racing surface here, trying to make some sort of move around each other. McMahon now at the back of this pack. Mr. Justin Phipps, he's gotten his way all the way up to third. It seemed like just a couple of laps ago we saw Phipps all the way back in the 7th position, but sure enough, now he's up here. He's trying to make moves on Kiger and get himself up in 2nd. What a turn of events for some of these drivers. You never know just how things are going to play out until after the checkered flag is flown. And I don't know if anyone really had it in their bingo cards for these 4 trucks, A, to be able to close the distance to each other, but to B, get themselves up to the front of the field. Of course, they all have a bit of ground they need to make up if they want to get to our race leader, who, speaking of, Corey Blevins just made his way on down to pit lane. So Corey Blevins, the next truck down off the speedway, looking like it's going to be 4 tires on the menu for the number 24. This should be the last stop for these truck drivers. So that's now going to bump Justin Phipps up to the lead, even if this isn't a permanent lead, because of course all these trucks still need to come down pit lane as well. But I'll tell you what, they are still racing like they are battling for the true lead. And we had less than 24 laps to go. 24 laps, I mean, when we're setting 40-second lap times, that's still at least a good 15 minutes of racing left, but they are still duking it out. That said, McMahon and Kiger, they're both going to dunk on down onto pit lane. And that's honestly a good thing for these 2 truck drivers. Going to both be making their pit stops at roughly similar speeds to each other, and that's going to allow both of them to come back out onto the racing surface together and get that tandem going so they can try and make some momentum and catch up to the rest of the field. And we see the jack go up on the left side. It's going to be a 4-tire stop for both of these truck drivers. And that is not how you come out of pit lane, Mr. Brandon Kiger. Little bit of an oopsie there, but he's got it rolling. We will have to see if race control will give him a black flag for that one. But that's not what the driver of the 85 wants to be having here this evening. Let's see if we can't take a quick look back at that. Brandon Kiger slamming on the gas on the way out of his pit lane and just spinning the tires a little bit more than he needed to. Those cold tires, they don't have the grip that you expect them to have sometimes. And now as we go back to the live race, Johnny B, Justin Phipps, Art Hendren all making their way down to pit lane. Art Hendren's actually on his way out now, so Johnny B, Justin Phipps going to be the next trucks down to make their pit stops. And of course, that will cycle Blevins back through as our race leader here tonight. And he's got a bit of room to play with. 10 seconds between Blevins and Church. You can see just behind him, that's McMahon in the 87, so McMahon's not battling for a position here. He is currently being scored a lap down. And there's Art Hendren in the 37. He is on the lead lap, but just barely. And of course, if Blevins works his way around that 37 truck, that will put Hendren a lap down as well. 20 laps to go left on the speedway. And it's looking like that is the pit cycle complete for all of these truck drivers. And speaking of truck drivers making pit stops, Kenny Tripp has come back down pit lane. He's turned just enough laps to be scored back above Ross Phillips. And I think he's going to call it there. He just wanted to get that spot back from the number 5 machine. And sure enough, Kenny Tripp has packed up his vehicle for the evening. He has called it quits here for tonight. He got the leg up on the truck he had that incident with, and he is satisfied with a 9th place finish rolling out of the Michigan International Speedway here this evening. A little bit further back in the field, this is the battle between Dwayne McMahon and Art Hendren. Both these trucks currently being scored a lap down, but they are on the same lap as each other, so they are battling for position. battling for 6th and 7th here. 19 left to go here tonight, and it looks like McMahon's might be having a little bit of connection issues. Call it about 0.15 seconds between these two trucks. And two very different lines being taken. Which is honestly, that's one of the big joys here of Michigan, is having such a wide racing surface to work with, and such a wide racing surface where really most of the lines are competitive ones. That's McMahon's going to drive it way down low, and he's going to make the pass on Art Hendren pretty handily. Hendren's going to come on back. Is Hendren going to try and make the crossover? Not quite enough momentum to make it happen. 17 left to go here in tonight's event, though. Everyone, at best, about 4 or 5 seconds between each other here. Except for this battle for the 5th position. Yeah, that's right. Because Scott Benedict's, despite all that he may try with his unorthodox pit strategy, it doesn't look like it's working out for the driver of the 88 machine all that well. Let's take another look back down at our strategies here this evening. Looking at the laps that they all came down pit lane, it does look like Benedict's actually made 2 stops back on lap 52, so that might have been why we didn't see him put on tires. It's entirely possible that he did take tires on that first stop and didn't get enough fuel put in the truck, had to come back around and get more fuel put in. Alternatively, he could have gotten served a black flag for speeding on pit lane and had to do a stop and go, and that also may have been why we didn't see him taking any tires. So might have been a little bit of a miscommunication on what his strategy is here, but regardless, you can see how everyone is on slightly different plans from each other for the most part. Everyone has the same general sort of idea. The main differentiating factor is who pitted on that lap 3 caution and who didn't. Of course, taking a look here at the lengths that they've been out here on the speedway, everyone stints anywhere between 19 to as far as 29 laps, but it doesn't look like anyone's been able to push these trucks further than 29 laps, and if they have been able to, it doesn't seem like they have wanted to. So with that final pit stop happening down on around lap 79, everyone should be good to go on fuel for the remainder of this race. And once again, we find Dwayne McMahon back inside the top 5. He's getting around Brandon Kiger, but Kiger, we've seen these two battling it out for most of the race. Kiger is not going to make his life easy. Kiger really trying to get the nose as close to that 87 as he can so he can try and make a move. McMahon goes high, and Kiger dives it way down low. And you gotta remember, right in front of them is the 24. These 3 trucks are all battling within a couple of tenths of the race leader. Of course, there's a lap dividing them, so if any of them got around Blevins right now, it wouldn't help them position-wise at all. But we do find ourselves in an interesting situation where these trucks could potentially all unlap themselves. If they manage to do that, it will make all of their lives significantly easier should a late race caution come out, because then no chance of getting stuck a lap down and having to depend on the lucky dog. They all could just be back in this fight just like that. Of course, Blevin also finds himself in an uncomfortable situation, because that means he has a faster pack of trucks approaching that are all battling for position. It's almost like we have a little bit of a reverse blue flag situation here, where the race leader is actually having to worry about lapped cars that are behind him. Let's ride on board with Corey Blevins here and get a look back at this battle between these three trucks just behind him. Enough, you can see McMahon there in that Toyota. He's gaining ground on our race leader. Whether or not these three trucks decide to try and overtake Blevins is an entirely different story. With 11 laps to go, it is a risky game no matter really how they decide to play it, especially with McMahon having those connection issues we're seeing out here. Double high fives up in the air, 10 laps to go. Actually going to be 9 to go here as we cross the line, and McMahon is drafted off of our race leader well enough that he doesn't really have to worry all that much about the pressure from behind anymore, because now Kiger and Hendren are battling it out in their own little separate battle. 0.6 of a second dividing McMahon and Kiger. And as long as McMahon manages to stay in the draft of the race leader, he should be okay. Now, of course, the second that anything goes wrong and he loses that, he's going to be in a very uncomfortable situation, because Kiger and Hendren will be able to catch up to him pretty easily when he's stranded by himself. But right now, things are looking good for that rookie driver up in the 5th position. 8 laps left to go though, and still these three trucks being stuck a lap down. The closest battles on the speedway. Corey Blevins, our race leader. Then it's going to be Kevin Church back in that 29 Chevrolet. He's back in P number 2, qualified back in 4th. So bit of ground gained for the driver of that number 29 machine. Then back in 3rd, Johnny B, looking to get his best finish of the season for the Flaming Karma Paint Shop Chevrolet. Then, of course, back and forth, Justin Phipps, the Mountain Dew Chevrolet, making the recovery of the century. He made his pit strategy work for him, was running back in 8th for a pretty long time here tonight. Now he finds himself up inside the top 5. And that brings us back to the battle that we have going back here, which has become less and less of a battle as McMahon and our race leader, Corey Blevins, build up more and more room to work with. Brandon Kiger is now 0.8 of a second back and losing ground. Art Hendren 0.6 of a second back from Kiger, and he is also losing a little bit of ground. So things starting to spread out just a little bit. Hendren was looking down below the apron a little bit there in that 37, and he's going to hit the outside wall. Going down below the apron definitely upset the balance of that number 37 machine, and he's still got it rolling, but he's now a second behind, actually a second and a half behind Kiger. Kiger now a second behind McMahon, so all three of these trucks losing time. 5 laps left to go though. Big high five up in the air. Corey Blevins just has to make these next 20 corners come together for him, and he will have a win to his name all the way back from the 14th position in the championship standings. That would still leave a very big deficit to make up, because coming into tonight's event, the driver that's currently being scored in last place, Ross Phillips, was our championship leader with 295 points. The driver with the only driver to have 2 wins to his name. Corey Blevins, all the way back in 14th, 179 points. So he's a full 100 points back from our championship leader. So he's got a lot of ground to make up. But Phillips, who was leading the championship standings coming into tonight, McElroy, who is second place in the championship standings, not able to attend tonight's event, and then Kenny Tripp, back in ninth, also wrecked out in that very same caution that took out the championship leader. Things are looking really good for Blevins. It's not perfect. It's not going to get him into the championship lead, but it is a perfect storm to maximize the amount of ground that he will gain in tonight's championship. Of course, that then brings us to the big wild card of next week. Martinsville Speedway is a very difficult track, even for the most seasoned of drivers. So I'm sure that anything that happens in tonight's standings here at Michigan could be entirely shaken up next week at the Paperclip. As we cross the line, though, 2 laps left to go for our race leader of Corey Blevins. Blevins, one of the handful of drivers that did not pit on early in this race. One of only 2 drivers still out on the speedway that has only pit 3 times. Everyone else 4 or more. Blevins seemed to make the strategy of the fewest pit stops possible be the one that works for him. 2 laps left to go, and as he comes out of turn number 4 and heads through the Geico restart zone, white flag going to be coming up in the air. 1 lap left to go at the Michigan International Speedway. One last lap for Corey Blevins to write his name down here in the Enigma Truck Racing Series record book. Of course, we can't ignore the rest of the drivers out here on the speedway. Church and Johnny B both also making really good finishes. Phipps and McMahon up in the top 5. That's both great news for both of them. Checkered flag up in the air. Corey Blevins going to be your 3rd unique winner here in the Enigma Truck Racing Series. What a race tonight has been. Only 10 trucks here at this 2-mile speedway, and they still found a way to duke it out for all 100 laps. I gotta give Mr. Blevins a little bit of time to get the rest of the field back down on pit lane before he can start doing his burnouts. Alternatively, he might just celebrate right here, right now. You never quite know with these truck drivers. He's slowing it down on the front stretch. What is he going to do? Is he going to try and save that truck for next week, or is he going to burn it down? There we go. Corey Blevins, the race winner here at the Michigan International Speedway. All the way back from 14th in the championship standings here tonight. Now, of course, race fans, gotta ask that you don't go anywhere. We will be back in just a moment here with interviews with your top 3 finishers here this evening. So don't go anywhere, race fans, and we will be right back. Alrighty, race fans, welcome back to the Michigan International Speedway and welcome back to round 4 of the Enigma Truck Racing Series. Up here with me in the booth, Mr. Corey Blevins, all the way back from 14th in the championship standings, now up here with a win to his name. How are you feeling now that you've gotten everything said and done here this evening? It's looking like maybe. All right, I think we've resolved the technical issues here. Corey, do you got a copy here? All right, maybe we don't then. Hmm. Well, for just a moment, I'm gonna pull P number 2 up here while we figure out what's going on with our race winner here tonight, and hopefully we can get that all sorted out. So, in that case, for the time being, while we get some technical issues sorted out, finishing back in P number 2, Mr. Kevin Church, you find yourself up here with a podium finish to your name. How are you feeling now that everything's said and done here tonight?
Pretty good. It was a good race. It's hard to catch Corey. He's fast, but it was a good race.
Yeah, definitely quite the race, especially for the relatively small field here we had tonight. I don't think the outcome of tonight's event was really in anyone's bingo cards here tonight, but you made it happen. You've got a podium to your name, and let's see, coming into tonight's event, it looks like you were 5th place in the championship standings. Yeah, that's right. So with Mex not attending, our championship leader wrecking out, Kenny Tripp back in 3rd place also wrecking out, and McElroy not being able to attend tonight's event. It's looking like things are doing very well for you coming out tonight's event in the championship standings.
Yeah, it's definitely going to help the points, which I needed. I hate to see something happen to Ross, but I'm glad I was able to take advantage of it and finish second.
Now, of course, that brings up a very big question. Next week, Martinsville. Everyone has to throw out what they have learned in the past 4 weeks to make things work at this track. How are you feeling going short track racing next week?
Yeah, it's kind of a wild card, probably. I don't know. It's just probably be pretty. It could be rough. Could be a good race. Who knows?
Well, here with oval racing, especially short track racing, there's always that element of chaos there and always the big what if. But for tonight, you made things work for you. You got your 29 machine up here on the podium. And of course, the red carpet is rolled out for you. The microphone is all yours. Who do you want to thank for getting you up here tonight?
Thanks, Matt, for putting this deal on. Thank you for broadcasting it, and thank everybody for showing up. It was a good race.
Good deal. Well, thank you for coming out and congratulations on your finish here this evening. And I look forward to seeing you next week at Martinsville.
Yep. Thank you. Talk to you later.
Yes, sir. You have a good evening.
You-
Now, before we talk to our 3rd place finisher of Mr. Johnny B here this evening, Corey, do you got a coffee on me?
Yes, sir. I gotcha.
All right, I'm glad to hear it because I wasn't sure if I broke something on my end or on your end, but we got
No,
things
it
sorted out.
reset. Headset reset on Discord. All good.
Well, it works out because apparently my internet at the same time that you were fixing your headset, my internet cut out for like 30 seconds, and I was really worried it was on my end. But it looks like
No, you're
everything's
good.
cool, everything's good. And Corey, you're up here with a win to your name after coming into tonight's event in 14th in the championship standings. How are you feeling now that everything's said and done here tonight?
Yeah, I'd missed one race there. It was actually missed it because I was actually in Daytona. So I guess that was a pretty good reason to miss one of the races. But kind of figured I was going to win one or two in this league. Matt, he kind of figured I was going to win as well. So it's good to finally put it back, put it in victory lane. I've won here probably quite a few times actually at Michigan, so I wasn't surprised to win here.
You definitely made it work for you. I'm pretty sure you took home the checkered flag with over a 10-second gap on anyone else in the field. So you definitely had something under the hood of that number 24 machine that worked out in your favor here tonight.
Yeah, the change in the paint scheme might not be a bad idea either. Changed it to kind of Jeff Gordon flames sort of. So yeah, may have helped me a little bit.
You never know. There's a lot of people who think luck comes in the paint scheme, and it definitely worked out for you here tonight. But that raises
Yes,
a
sir.
very big question. Next week, Martinsville, a very distinctly different track than this one. How are you feeling going short track racing next week?
Martinsville has been kind of evil to me. I don't know if I've ever actually won a race there. I've been really close. Finished second quite a few times, gotten wrecked out of the lead before there. So we'll see. Maybe I can finally put it in victory lane there. I've been on iRacing since 2014. I don't think I've ever had a win there. So it'd be pretty nice for sure.
Good deal. Well, I certainly look forward to seeing what you're able to make work there, even if it's a track you're entirely comfortable with. But for now, you've got a win to your name. Who do you want to thank for getting this 24 up here in victory lane here tonight?
Yeah, just my team, Flat Out Motorsports that I run for. I want to thank Matt for running the league. Thank you for broadcasting it. I've got my sponsors, Hazard Design. I'm a designer for them as well. Check them out on Twitter. And then my stepdad's dad's business is Keys Architects and Associates. I've ran that quite a bit this season as well. But I want to thank them as well for being on the truck.
Good deal. Well, congratulations on the win. And of course, I look forward to seeing you next week.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Have a great evening.
You too. And now, at long last, after sorting out way too many technical difficulties, Mr. Johnny V, I've got you up here in the booth here with me. I feel like it's been a little bit too long since I've gotten to speak to you. How are you feeling now that everything's said and done here this evening?
I'm feeling pretty good. Had a rough start to the season, but feels good to be up there and get third place.
Yeah, I was talking a little bit about that earlier in the race. You just kept finding yourself in really unfortunate situations, but finally you managed to get something all put together. And third place, definitely no laughing matter. What do you think might have had to have played out different in this race for you to have gotten up into second or maybe even taken home the checkered flag?
Well, I'm pretty good at super speedways, and I was just trying not to burn up my tires and trying to just run a smooth line, keep it clean, try to stay off the wall. That wall comes to bite you up in turn 3 and 4 there, and just run a clean race.
Definitely always a good plan, and you made it up onto the podium, and that will be doing pretty good for you heading into next week in the championship stand-ins. And of course, next week, the first two drivers I spoke to a little bit hesitant about it, but I know you've been running in the Wednesday night short track league for the past 12 weeks now. How are you feeling heading into Martinsville in the trucks?
Well, actually, to tell you the truth, I never ran Martinsville. I got to buy the track, but I ran street stocks, a lot of short tracks for 2 years in a league. So I just got to take it easy and find my groove, and I think I should be all right. If I could stay, finish in the middle of the pack somewhere, I'll be happy. Not looking to be up front, but you never know.
You never know indeed, especially with the element of chaos that short track racing tends to have.
Absolutely. I tend to stay in the back and just, try to stay out of everybody's way and let them do what they got to do and usually come home clean if, nobody gets into me like first couple of weeks, but that's racing, stuff happens. Can't help that.
Yes, yes, sir. But of course, for tonight, you've got a podium to your name at long last. Who do you want to thank for getting that number 66 machine up here in the broadcasting booth?
I just want to thank Matt and Steve for putting on, running a great league, and just want to thank everybody that I race with. I mean, all the guys are good. We all race clean. Nobody tries to take anybody out, and that's about it. Just everybody that we run with.
Good deal. Well, as always, thank you for coming out, and I look forward to seeing you next week at Martinsville.
All right, thanks. Have a good night.
You too. You heard it here first, race fans. Your top 3 finishers here this evening: Corey Blevins, Kevin Church, Johnny B. All either tying or beating their best ever finishes here in the league. Of course, before we send it off, though, let's take a look down at our race results here tonight. Not official, but they might as well be. We haven't issued any penalties here in the Enigma Truck Racing Series so far this season. So, Blevins, Church, Johnny B, all taking home the top 3 positions here tonight. Then it's going to go back to Mr. Justin Phipps in 4th, with rookie Dwayne McMahon rounding out the top 5 here tonight. 6th place is going to go back to that 85 of Brandon Kiger, followed by Art Hendren in the 37, and Scott Benedicts in the 88, rounding out the last of the trucks that were there to see the checkered flag. And of course, finally rounding out the rest of the field here tonight, Kenny Tripp, Ross Phillips, the 2 drivers that were battling it out for the lead for so long in the early stages of this race, took each other out. And not only that, but it was the 2 drivers leading the championship standings that were present for tonight's race that came into tonight's race. And now I don't think either of them are going to exactly be where they want to be after tonight's event heading into Martinsville. But yeah, Martinsville, half a mile, extremely narrow, different from anything these truck drivers have had to face so far this season. Same day, same time, Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. Definitely be sure to tune in for that one, because it is bound to be one heck of a race. But for now, that's all we got here from the Michigan International Speedway. Of course, from everyone here in the Enigma Truck Racing Series and from me up here in the broadcasting booth, a big thank you for coming out and tuning in to the event and giving it all your support. And from everyone here, we all look forward to seeing y'all next week. Have a good evening, race fans.